Hello again. Time for another LinkedIn Live. Well, for those of you that have been giving me the feedback, the comments, the messages, thank you. Thank you for getting in touch, and I'm pleased that you're enjoying the LinkedIn Live sessions. I'm glad to see that you're learning from them, and I'm going to continue, as are the rest of my team. We're still continuing with the LinkedIn Lives Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every week. And it's 2 p.m. on Tuesday. I just said Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. No, I meant to say it's going to be 2 p.m. UK time every time, continuing. Because that's what we fixed it at. If somebody needs it at a different time, well, I'm sorry, but you'll have to go back to the recording. And you can see the recordings on LinkedIn. But actually, I do find it easier to find them if you look on YouTube. YouTube, you've got the link at the end of the presentation, on every presentation. So if you've seen one, you can find it for all of them. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel and just let me know on LinkedIn, that's fine. Or you can leave a message on YouTube. But I don't actually find YouTube as easy to receive the communication. It's not really... I don't really think it's meant for that, but just connect with me on LinkedIn anyway and send me a message. I'm happy to receive your messages, and whenever somebody messages me, I do answer them all personally myself. Yeah, it could be somebody else, but it's not. It's actually me replying. Same as it will be for Annetta and for Farah. We reply to our own messages on LinkedIn when you chat with us. So what we're talking about today. Today is about data integrity myths that get companies shut down. Now, you may be aware that a number of companies in the past have been closed down for failures to comply with data integrity requirements. So what sort of things were they doing? Well, falsifying evidence, writing down the results and not actually doing the work. So that's a data integrity failure. Yeah, it's also a fraud. But the way that they got picked up, identified, was looking back to their primary data. There wasn't any. What else? Well, not doing their audit trail checks. When you do a batch release, you should do an audit trail check. Why should you do an audit trail check? Well, because then it proves that nobody's tampered with the evidence. And so today we're going to be challenging the assumptions that leave organizations vulnerable to regulatory action. Data integrity is a GMP issue, not just an IT issue. When problems exist in paper, electronic and hybrid systems alike, that's what we're talking about when we talk about data integrity. It's not just what you see on the computer. The scope of data integrity is everything. Everywhere you've got a record, everywhere you've got something measured, everywhere you've got something recorded, everywhere you've got evidence to support that you actually made that batch and tested it in accordance with the license, in accordance with GMP, good manufacturing practices. So then you look for root cause. Well, the most serious failures develop gradually through everyday behaviors. What do we mean by that? Well, oh yeah, it's okay. We missed it, but we can just write it down now. And we'll just write it down at the time we did it because we know that's when we did it. Or you get to the end of the day and you realize you didn't fill in your results. But you know everything was okay. So you make up some numbers that were the actual results. Or should I say, you've recorded them as the actual results, but they weren't. They were just what you remembered. That's a really easy way to get caught out. But also, it's a really easy way to ship a product that's actually not passing. So be careful. Don't just do it because you forgot. Actually admit, well, we did this wrong. Now we've got a gap. Maybe you'll have to do the test again. But at least when you do the test again, you'll know that the product that you've tested has data to support the actual test result. If you've got the primary data, go back to the primary data, reintegrate it. If you're doing it on some sort of LIMS system or something else, Empower maybe, but you reintegrate your data, your primary data, and you can still get your finished result. Regulators, inspectors look beyond individual errors to systemic weaknesses. When you've got a data integrity failure that's brought up once, they're going to look for, well, what's caused that? What's your governance? What's your policy? How does your training get rolled out to all the different parts of the team? Why did it happen? Is actually really what they're looking for. When they're looking for a systemic weakness, they're looking for why. Why did this happen? Why was it allowed? Why didn't anybody catch it? Were they not looking at their audit trail to verify that only the appropriate people could do the testing, that only the right people could enter that additional information? If it's written down, it's reliable. Well, we're actually moving on to a different section now. It's called myths. It's things that I suppose it's what people assume. If it's written down, it's reliable. Well, you can see on this picture, we've added a waste bin on purpose. Why is that? Well, you've got your notebook and it's one of those spring-bound ones. What can you do with those spring-bound ones? Well, you can rip a page out, screw it up, throw it in the bin. Nobody's any the wiser. Evidence, data, results have to be written down at the time. Backdating and retrospective completion destroy record integrity, as does throwing it away, writing it down again, without whatever the mistake was. If you find a mistake, you have to refer it back to the person that made the mistake to fix it. Don't fix it for them. I've been in a position where the data integrity failed, not because the result wasn't filled in or corrected. It was because the person doing the correction assumed, didn't look at primary data, assumed that they'd written it down wrong and corrected it for them and signed and dated it. But in actual fact, it wasn't wrong. The result was the problem and the product was out of spec. But they just assumed that they'd done it wrong. Hidden data, uncontrolled worksheets, notebooks, create undisclosed records. But back to the picture again. Writing it down once, ripping it up, throwing it away, writing it down again, you've lost your primary data. You always need to keep your primary data. If you're going to do a true copy, sign and date it. Make sure somebody additional to the person writing it verifies that it is a true copy and signs and dates it. I attest this is a true copy of blah, blah, blah. Alcoa Plus. Data integrity principles apply to paper just as much as they apply to electronic data. We all think about electronic data when we talk about Alcoa. But it's not true. It's not limited to electronic data. It's just as relevant to paper copies. Corrections, single line, initial date, it's part of data integrity. It's part of Alcoa Plus. Computer system protects the data. Does it really? It's another myth for us. Shared usernames, I would say, is probably the number one issue that I've seen with failed data integrity on computer systems. Actually, maybe it's that and incorrect security rights. And there's multiple different reasons that you get incorrect security rights. Shared usernames eliminate individual accountability, but they actually stop the data being attributable. Just because it's electronic doesn't automatically mean it's compliant. You still have to verify. Admin rights. I've seen admin access where they can do anything, literally change anything, and nobody can see. How can that be acceptable? It's not. Inappropriate access creates opportunities to alter data undetected. Disabled audit trails. What is the point in buying a system that will actually deliver you an audit trail to prove that you've got acceptable data integrity if you turn it off. You don't turn it off. You make sure your system is set up to run it the way it was intended. Remove critical visibility. Controls only work when people use them correctly. You have to have your audit trail turned on. Otherwise, you don't know that that person made a mistake and then went back and fixed it for them, for themselves. You don't know that they got admin to log in and delete a record. How are you going to know if you don't have your audit trail on? You must always have the audit trail on, recording the critical GMP data. Now, this is important. GMP data is all the data that is utilized to support the acceptability of a batch. It's not something that the system does internally that has no relevance to the batch. So when you put on an audit trail, you have to actually assess what it is that computer is logging. Because then, and only then, can you decide what's critical. Imagine the computer is logging every single transaction, and it's doing maybe, I don't know, 2,000 transactions an hour. Maybe it's more than that. And you want to look through a day's data before you do one batch release. Well, that's why it's really important that your audit trail actually records what's GMP critical, not the irrelevant stuff, because computers work in multiple different transactions at once. There might be a monitoring, I don't know what to call it now because I'm making this up as I'm going along. A monitoring widget, I suppose, or the background processes that run in Microsoft, monitoring the computer to make sure that it's actually managing the memory properly. It's not GMP data. I want to visualize what it's like inside that computer. Imagine it's actually writing it down on a piece of paper instead of digitally. And you've got hundreds and hundreds of transactions as you go along. But none of it's impacting the output. Your result, your data is there to generate a result. That result is there to decide whether that batch is acceptable. If it's acceptable, then you can go ahead and pass. If it's not, then you need to do an update. You need to do an investigation. You need to do some additional work. Now, when you contemplate that additional work, people think, oh, I don't really want to do that. Let's just change this. No. Actually follow the process. We reviewed the final result and it was okay. But you need the full story. You don't just want that final result. You've got the HPLC result. You've got the HPLC saying, this is an unreported peak and the reported result. Oh no. But the metadata shows you everything that happened behind. It shows you in the audit trail that that unreported result was actually ignored. Failed tests require appropriate scrutiny and documentation. But imagine you're there, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and your friends have all invited you to go down to the pub for a drink. Or maybe you're going out for dinner with your wife. Just think about it. Just see yourself there. Envisage what it would be like, how you would feel. Oh no, it's come up with a failed test. I'm now going to have to reset it up. It's going to take me another hour before I can go home. It's really tempting. But it's really important that we actually give the correct results, that we do test our medicinal products, and that we cure the patient, that we actually treat them. So do investigate the failed test. Do check your audit trail. When somebody's done a test, make sure when you're the supervisor, you're verifying it. Maybe you're the checker. Either way, you still need the audit trail to pass. You need to verify nobody's tampered with that primary data that's been used to produce that result that you're using to sign off that test. You need to ask what happened before the final result appeared. Now, when I first started in the pharma industry back in the 80s, we did have shared logins. In fact, we had standalone computers that you turned on. There actually wasn't even a login. So the myth is now shared logins are fine in small companies. Well, what happens when attributability fails? Well, everyone knows who was working. It's not reliable evidence. It's not good enough. Imagine coming back to that piece of data in 3 years' time and it's stability data, and you're using that data to support keeping that product on the market for the next 5 years. And you cannot say that the person carrying out that test was trained. Can you see the inspector coming in front of you and asking you the question, show me that evidence that they were trained? And one person was in training. They didn't have their completed training record. Was it them doing it? Well, they had access because it's a shared login. So what happens? You recall everything because you cannot prove that the data that you've generated, that the results that you're using to justify keeping that product on the market were actually managed, were actually generated in accordance with good manufacturing practice. Convenience isn't a justification. Access has to reflect individual roles and responsibilities. What about investigations? If you can't identify who performed the action, you can't do your full investigation. You can't interview the person doing the test. You can't get additional information. You can't create the result from first principles because you've got a gap. So shared logins are not acceptable. Number 5, audit trails are only reviewed when something goes wrong. No. An audit trail is generated on a risk basis. You have to focus on GMP, changes, deletions, repeats, overrides, making sure that nobody's actually non-compliant. Think about it. What would you do if you saw that person there changing the data? What would you do if you saw them crossing it out and starting again? What would you do if you saw them throw that piece of paper in the bin? Well, you'd tell them not to. With data integrity, that's what you're required to do every single time. You need routine oversight, ongoing processes, not reacting just to a failure, not reacting to your next complaint. Your reviewer must be trained. They have to be competent. And they need to understand what a suspicious pattern looks like so that they can identify it and highlight it so that it's addressed. Findings, initiate and drive investigations. The CAPA processes and the trend analysis is all supported by the audit trails. Number 6, data integrity problems caused by bad employees. No. Most of the time, it's a poorly designed system. Many failures originate from flawed processes, not a person, even though that's what I've been talking about. Not just a person. Maybe it's unrealistic workloads. You go into the office, just see the person coming in, envisage them starting their day, and the boss comes in. And they're shouting and screaming. We really need to get this batch out. Get on with it. You've got to prioritize this one. But the person says, but what about this, this, and this? You need to do that as well. Not instead. And that's because 3 people just called in sick that morning. Why do you think that was? It's probably the toxic work environment, not the poorly designed system and not the employees. Management pressure can discourage reporting of undesirable results. The quality culture is really important, and it determines whether problems are highlighted or just put away in the corner. You need to encourage it, not criticize it. And then we have number 7, deleting bad data. Is that the problem? But unfortunately, deletion is only one form of data integrity failure. You want to imagine, again, that Friday afternoon feeling. The test results that we got 3 results. 2 passed and 1 failed. So we decided to do a 4th one, and it passes as well. Or a 5th one, or a 6th one. And you know what? When I first started in QC, that's what they were doing. I was watching my lead analyst testing something again and again and again. I asked her what she was doing. Oh, I'm just testing it again. Why? Well, it failed, so I'm just testing it again. Why? Well, that's what we do. We test it until it passes. No. If there's a problem with the batch, you give them the failed result and they have to deal with it, even if that's a reject. So they went back to the manufacturing line. They told them that it failed. And they found in the batch manufacturing log, when they looked, that they'd missed one component from the batch. That's why it was failing. Not because they needed to test it again and again. They needed to actually do the job right. It was a simple rework on a liquid bulk solution. But historically, management pressure was release, release, release. And that's how that particular employee had been trained. And I came in as the new supervisor saying, follow GMP. And you know what? It worked. Because we had less rejects, because we actually reported the correct data up front. The complaints went down. I wonder why. Because we're actually producing the product we were supposed to. Original failure data remains part of the GMP record. When you invalidate results, you have to investigate. Not just do it again and throw that one away. Repeat testing until a passed result is a major warning sign. And it's really easy to spot. All you do is you get all your data and you plot it to look at the population. And your population should be like this. It should be a nice bell curve. And to spot somebody that's actually testing to spec, you'll find one side or the other, instead of being a nice normal distribution, it cuts off at a certain point. And when you investigate, surprise, surprise, what are you going to find? You're going to see that actually that's the specification limit. And the ones outside, where have they gone? That's an easy spot of a data integrity problem. It's an easy spot of somebody tampering with the results. Next audit, that's what you're going to look for, isn't it? You're going to actually observe what they're doing, do the plot, and see. Are they doing it right or not? Is your contract lab testing to spec or giving you the correct results, the actual true data? So what do inspectors look for? Complete data lifecycle. Can the organization reconstruct every step from raw data to final result? Original records. I always go back and look back. No, actually, I usually look forwards and then backwards. So when I'm auditing, I look at the test result and we say, right, can you show me the primary data? And then I look at the results and I say, right, where did that calculation come from? Oh, it's blah, blah, blah. Where was that written down? And I look back to that. And if you cannot get the full traceability back to the original data, then it's failed. But then you should be able to do it forwards as well. I look for access controls and I get a different person that's not in the team and I watch them. I watch them as they actually try to log in. Well, I can't do it. I can't log in. I know. So we'll do it anyway. Do you know what happened once? I went to this company. I was doing a 4-cause audit. If you don't know what a 4-cause audit is, it's when something massively goes wrong. And you believe that they're not actually following the correct process. So I was a week on site, observing every single transaction, every activity. And I found that they had a folder that in theory was a secure folder. And you couldn't go in and edit. But what you could do, you could get a replacement document and save it over the top. So you could take a copy, edit it somewhere else, bring it back, replace it. What you couldn't do was click, open it in the editing program, which I think was Word at the time. Might have been Excel. What you couldn't do was take it there and edit there. But they hadn't locked it down properly. They didn't have the right access controls. Interestingly, the way that I got to that was looking at the previous audit, because the previous audit had highlighted that same problem on the, it wasn't even locked at all. They were just open records, open documents. So they'd locked it down to a certain level, but not gone far enough. So imagine you're in the IT team. Or just, we need to secure that folder and it needs to be accessible to these people. So that's what they did. What they didn't tell them was that they couldn't write to it from somewhere else. They only did part of the job. So the auditor at the time should have gone back and looked. There's these several different options. Maybe not the auditor. Maybe just the person. It's a bit windy here, sorry. Maybe not just the auditor. Maybe it was the person that was actually doing the verification of the kappa that should have said, right, show me. You can't just accept somebody's written it down. Yeah, we've done that. Go and look for yourself. Observe. I always like to go and see. It's nice to be able to verify somebody's done the job you asked them to do. Active QA response. Do management and QA actively respond to warning signals? We know something's going wrong. We're just not quite sure what it is. Go and have a look. You've got 2 feet, 2 eyes. Ask. Talk to them. More importantly, listen. Because if you don't listen to the response, well, you might as well have not asked in the first place. The reality, you need to be able to trust your data and prove it. Risk-based controls, not paperwork volume. Make the easiest path the right path. Now, this is one that people often forget. If there's a hard way to do something and an easy way to do something, people tend to want to do it the easy way, even when you've told them to do it the hard way. Make the test, make the work you've done attributable. Always, sign and date, every time. Not just once, not just occasionally, every time across the board. And contemporaneous recording. must be the default behavior. You actually make the data, you read the records at the time there and then. Not at the end of the shift, not next week, not when it's easy and convenient, at the time. Full life cycle reviews are the ones that often come up with the problems. Review the full story, not just the final results. Okay, you've been asked to do just that final sign-off, but look through and make sure it's sequential. If that record's not sequential, the chances are something wasn't done the way it's supposed to be. Have a culture of transparency. I want you to envisage a team that actually talk to each other. I want you to see them there in front of you. Chitter, chatter away. And they're all nice. They're all friendly. And when somebody does something wrong, somebody else highlights it and says, well, I think you meant to do that. And when the data comes out, it's all perfect. Even with the errors and the corrections. It actually reflects what happened. A culture where bad news travels quickly, warning signals are investigated, not explained why. Do the job properly. That's what's most important in a GMP environment. Well, I hope you found today's useful, and I hope you'll come and join us at the Academy of Pharmaceutical Excellence. But in the meantime, do connect with me on LinkedIn, as you can see on the screen, linkedin.com/in/Paul R. Palmer. I do like to hear from you, as I've said already. I quite enjoy teaching, so that's why I do it. Then we've got YouTube. I do find it's easier to look up the historical ones on YouTube. So we've got youtube.com/Paul R. Palmer. That's for me and the team, just to keep it all the same. Then if you'd like to, come to the website and book a training, maybe a workshop. We can do custom workshops just well, not just the ones that are recorded online. www.academypharmaceuticalexcellence.com or email us info@academypharmaceuticalexcellence.com. I hope to hear from you soon, and I do hope you found what we've done through today useful and that you'll use it to improve your own working practices.